Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for another live reading on the channel. So excited to get to chapter 3 of Sojourner's Path. So I hope that you guys are excited as I am. If you're interested in the book after we're done, or even right now, you can find, oh my goodness, let's see, it's now available on Amazon and Apple Books. So you can find the title in both places. Just look for the cover, the way that it is, and you will be able to find it. And it's really, it's cool. You know, being a self-published author is not the easiest thing in the world. So I decided it's better for me to broadcast some of the chapters live so that people can get to know the book. And if you would like to skip this and just go straight for the first 9 chapters, you can download that if you go to my website, which is, amycarillo.weebly.com. So it's under a Weebly site, and so I hope that you guys get the chance to check it out. We're going to start today, like I said, on chapter 3. And so far, what's happened is that Allie's had a nightmare or two. She has had to endure some really awful pain from that nightmare because she basically destroyed her bedroom, and it's been really rough as far as that goes. We get to know her family as far as her brother and his wife, and we get to know her job a little bit. And now we're going to get into some other parts of her life. And we've also, if you watch the introduction to the book, you've also gotten to know one of the demons. So, okay, chapter 3. Saturday morning, Allie left Ty's house around 10:30 to do the grocery shopping she meant to do on Wednesday, then ran around with more errands, got home, made dinner, and collapsed on the couch. Sunday, Allie went to church at 9. It was a non-denominational church, which had its roots in Lutheranism, of about 300 or so people. She hadn't been in a while, partially due to the overwhelming guilt she felt about not participating in the extras of the church, things like the choir, handing out bulletins, reading scripture for the congregation, or cleaning up luncheons and funerals. She would do little things for people outside of church, pay for someone's groceries, attend fundraisers, ring the bell at Christmas outside shops, things like that. The other reason was she had a habit of speaking her mind, which rubbed some of the parishioners the wrong way. The sign outside said, "Come as you are," but she felt it should have included, "and will conform you." The head pastor, James Wembley, liked to have an Ask the Pastor sermon every month, an opportunity to ask questions about sermon topics. Allie's questions were probing, challenging, and didn't win any friends, especially the man in charge. Today was one of those Sundays. At the end of the sermon, the congregation took to their feet and sang "Just as I Am," followed by the offering plate. Pastor Donald Wembley stepped down from the pulpit area and into the main floor of the congregation. "Before we part, friends, I invite you to ask any questions you have about either the sermon today, over the past few weeks, or just in general about the Bible." Pastor Wembley pointed to the opposite side of the church where Donna Melbourne stood. "Marcy, could you pass the mic to Donna?" Donna was handed the mic by the church secretary. "When you spoke about transformation 2 Sundays ago, and you brought up the changes in Paul, I was confused. If God healed him of his blindness, why didn't he heal the thorn in his flesh?" Donna asked. "There are many times when we ask similar questions to what you're asking, Donna." Wembley began. "Why is there suffering in the world? Why does God give miracles here but not there? Why does he allow evil? And why do good people have to die?" He was poised at the precipice of a very common apologist answer and was about to take the dive, but paused for effect. Allie squirmed in her seat. She knew only too well how the loss of a loved one could cause questions and anger towards the Almighty. But unlike others who railed against God, she managed to sidestep her feelings of betrayal by stifling them. She simply refused to think about it. Wembley reached for the Bible and flipped through the passages as he continued. God knows our pain. He is intimately aware of it. He sent his son to die, that we may be freed from the trappings of this fallen world. But to answer your direct question, Donna, we do not know whether Paul's thorn was a physical, mental, or spiritual ailment. However, if you read on, the Lord told Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Our gift from God is not to have the perfect life here, but to be made complete by trusting in him, by walking with him and relying on his grace. Donna nodded and sat back down with a perplexed smile. She was still chewing on his words, attempting to string pieces together in relation to her understanding. Relying on grace? It was obvious she expected a very black and white answer, and theology was a foreign language to her. Still, she didn't want to appear foolish and ask for clarification. Any attempt to do so would show her for what she was, an uneducated believer. Allie felt for her. Church speak, as sometimes called, could be very confusing to new Christians or parishioners who were just getting acquainted with the good book. Some were too busy with children's extracurriculars, working a split shift, or attempting to make overtaxed schedules fit into an already overburdened calendar. I'm sorry. Hang on a moment. Sometimes you forget to turn off all of that fun stuff. Okay. They only had time for 3-minute devotionals and digesting the Bible, a biteful at a time. Wembley was looking around now, trying to find another question. After Donna's debacle, no one seemed to have the gumption to try again. They sat, staring at the good preacher, hoping for early dismissal. Allie was beside herself. She promised she wouldn't ask the question boring into her thoughts, pressing against her conscience. She didn't want to make everyone uncomfortable. She didn't want to feel the fool. Her face felt flush. She closed her eyes and, against her better judgment, raised her hand. Wembley fielded questions from Allie before. He gave the room another look around to see if anyone else's hand was up. A deep, audible breath came through his nostrils. "Alyssa, what's your question?" Allie could feel the groans and sighs across the sanctuary. Half of her wanted to sit down, but the other part became indignant. After she was handed the mic, she asked her question. "Jesus never said, 'I love you,' directly to any of his disciples. Yet we say it to one another, to anyone who walks through the door of the church. Isn't that a little presumptuous?" There was a palpable silence after she spoke. Some people turned slowly in their seats, staring at her indignantly. 2 of the older choir members began to whisper amongst themselves, eyes darting back toward Allie. A few people coughed, echoing around the room. There was no hole to crawl into. She just alienated herself from the entire congregation. He did, actually. In John chapters 13 and 15, he says, "Love as I have loved you." Pastor Wembley rebutted. "You started this, so make your point and make it good," she thought. Yes, but that's not the same. He'd already shown his love for them, stating it after the fact. Wasn't he showing it by being their mentor and teaching them first? By witnessing God's love in action? What's your point? My point is that we say, "I love you," as freely as we hand out candy in children's church. We say it sometimes before we end the conversation to someone we just met. Her frustration boiled over into her tone. My point is I think we have to walk the walk before we can talk the talk. I mean, what's the point of saying it if there's no meaning behind it? The pastor's expression became dark and his tone heavy. He walked over to the pulpit and stood behind it. I mean it. I love this congregation. I love each person in it. People should be able to say, "I love you." Christ's message is clear. We're to love everyone. Then lightly he said, "Any more questions?" Allie left as quickly as she could. She knew she'd stepped on the congregation's last nerve. It was evident on their faces and demeanor. It wasn't the first time she'd broached a subject that was sensitive. She'd started preaching when she really just wanted to know how people could use the word so flippantly. They didn't get it. Love costs. That she knew. She knew from watching people she depended on walk away and those who stayed as soon as the word cancer became a part of their vocabulary. She knew from taking care of her mother, watching her languish from a disease she couldn't control. She knew from how angry she'd been with God, though she wouldn't acknowledge it. It wasn't some prize you found in a Cracker Jack box. It wasn't a feeling coming and going with mood or circumstances. And it was definitely not something you said to someone you just met. Allie sat on the couch, half watching a movie and considering her options for dinner. Nothing seemed to sound good but chicken, swimming in all its juices. Usually she'd have gone for a salad or lighter fare. Tonight was different. Her mouth salivated at the thought of eating chicken skin and marrow, a heavy cream sauce with butter and spinach. She tried to fight the thought, as it was entirely too many calories and fat for one person, but it sounded so good. Forget it. Not gonna happen. Hey, are you listening? Nope. She let the movie run in the living room and headed for the kitchen. Prep needed to be done for the decadent meal she desired. Pots and pans clanged and clamored. Soon after, the house was filled with the aroma of sage, thyme, and poultry sizzling. She tried never to lick her fingers as she cooked, but when she got butter on her hands, resistance was an afterthought. And an hour later, Allie sat in front of the meal she'd envisioned, a full stick of butter for the sauce, and a pint of heavy cream she was saving for making whipped cream. Once in front of her, the realization she'd made far too much for one person dawned. At least 6 servings sat on the table. Allie scooped a chicken thigh with cream sauce and spinach onto a plate. The aroma was intoxicating. She sliced tender meat and put the first forkful in her mouth. As her taste buds encountered the flavors, there was a decided approval and excitement by one and all. Her body felt tingly and warm. The dish settled lovingly inside. She knew she couldn't eat like this again for a long time, but felt once was okay. It wasn't like she didn't eat healthy meals on a general basis. Whole grains, low-fat meats, and vegetables were often the mainstay of her diet. Allie decided tonight was a fluke. Satisfaction achieved, she sat back in the chair. There were 3 meals left to be had. Wait, did I eat that much? It was true. Half was gone. The dishes were cleared hastily to remove all trace of evidence. What's done was done. She wasn't going to dwell on the momentary lapse of good choices. She wanted to enjoy the moment. A familiar Django Reinhardt tune began playing on Allie's phone, the ringtone of a friend she hadn't heard from for a week or two. She made her way back to the dining room and picked it up. Hey! Hey, girl, how you? Gwen's voice chimed on the other end. Childhood afforded Allie 2 things: her home with all its beautiful memories and a lifelong best friend living just a block down. Since then, Gwen moved around quite a bit, and though there were dry spells with little communication, they never lost touch. Every conversation seemed to pick up right where it left off. Good, thinking about some ice cream. Allie couldn't believe she said it aloud. Ice cream? Seriously, you cow? Oh, I wish. We haven't stopped for hours. Gwen was a fiddle player with Jangbo, a gypsy jazz group. She sighed deeply. Almost to Philly. 11 more gigs to go. I'm jealous. Can't remember the last time I went anywhere. When are you back? About a month. Then I'll be in a coma for just as long. Gwen's tone sounded like how her anticipation felt. Allie could hear the sound of the bus putter and the traffic on the other end of the phone. The bumps would change the timbre of Gwen's voice momentarily. You know, I had to play someone else's fiddle last night. What? Why? Allie really was surprised. Gwen's rig was custom, and she took care of it. Never went on without it. My bridge busted during Hungaria right in the middle of the last set. What? Exactly. playing, and all of a sudden, crack! So loud. Were you hurt? No. Scared the crud out of everyone there, though. I bet. So, I'm standing there. Ronnie switches from rhythm to lead, and Mark looks at me like, now what? Wait, no one stopped playing? Nope. I go off into the wings to see if I can salvage the bridge, but it's busted right in half. Pressure, lack of humidity, who knows? But that sucker is done. Don't you have a spare? I didn't. No time to put it on either. I'm standing there with my rig in hand, wondering how I'm going to finish, and just then the manager comes to me and hands over a fiddle. Says the audience member brought theirs, hoping to get an autograph. Seriously? Wait, who owned the fiddle? A kid. His parents were thrilled. Recorded the whole thing. Anyway, I tune her up and jump into Japanese Sandman. Finish the set. Wow. How's your violin? Mine? Fine now. There was a luthier in town. Bought a new bridge from them. Took about 15 minutes to replace everything and clean her up. Allie laid back on the couch and looked at the ceiling wistfully. You have the best stories. She hadn't been anywhere for years. She'd planned to travel to see the world, but after her mother got sick and she inherited the house, everything else was put on hold. She envied Gwen's adventures and loved hearing about them. So, how's life? Haven't talked to you for a while. Gwen sounded a little sad. Allie chose her words carefully. She didn't want to burden Gwen with nightmares or stress at work. Okay. Read a new book. Work's good. Ty, Tammy, and the kids are well. There was a silence on the other end for a few minutes. And? What? I asked how you are. Oh, fine. Come on. What's going on? Gwen's tone was not aggressive, but confronted Allie. I'm fine. I'm good. Nothing new to report. Every day is pretty much the same as the last. No surprises. Loving it. For the most part, that was true. Days did tend to melt into one another, and her life wasn't anywhere near as amazing as Gwen's. Uh-oh. Oversold it. Allie thought. Look, there's not much to do around here, okay? But I'm good. Office life. The next tour begins in 4 months. There's room on the bus for one more. Is that a hint? What about it? Gwen asked, urging Allie. Yeah, right. I wish. Yeah, why not? You're obviously miserable, Allie. You need this. You should come. Oh, yeah, sure. I'll just go for 6 months on tour with you. And I'm not miserable. Yes, you are. She always could tell. Allie's head was spinning. What do I do on the bus? Stare at the scenery? Be our liaison. Or the band's personal assistant. You can line up radio interviews and stuff. And what about the job I have now? I can't exactly leave for half a year and come back. Quit. Come on, Allie giggled. Oh, it would be awesome, though. I'd love to go with you. Then you should. What about the house? Ty lives nearby. He can check up on it. Allie sighed. She really wanted to, but didn't see how it was feasible. When you get back, we should go for Thai food. There's a new restaurant on Market Street. Gwen groaned. You always do that. Do what? Change the subject on me. No, I don't. Come on, Allie. Let's do this. Let me give it some thought, okay? It's a big decision, and I'm no spring chicken. I have to think about my retirement. That was true. She didn't have very much saved at all, and her 401k and profit sharing supplied by Trammer wasn't the best out there. Allie would have to work another 35 years to get the kind of savings that would sustain her golden era. You're never going to live until you let go. Gwen paused. There was an awkward silence. Sorry. It's just, you could use an adventure. Allie thought for a moment before answering. Gwen always wanted what was best for her. She was there for Allie. There when her mother was ill. The sister she needed. Was now the best time to ditch everything and go? Just give me a little time. And that ends chapter 3. All right, well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this next chapter reading. Join me again next Thursday at noon Central Standard Time, and we will go through another chapter. All right, you guys, have the best rest of your day, and I hope, I don't I hope that it's fantastic for you. Don't forget that the book Sojourner's Path is available on Amazon as well as now on Apple Books. And soon we will be recording the audiobook. So have a great rest of your day.